Among my people, it is considered an honor to aid any true seeker in his quest.
Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I am not doing so good. I screwed up, I forgot to prepare some tutoring and had some sleep issues and had to cancel some tutoring and postpone it until Wednesday. So Monday's not doing, and I missed a GP appointment. That was part of what threw me. 7:45 a.m. But he called later around 8 something, and I was still, I think, drifting in and out of sleep or unable to respond. And but I heard the call. I think he called twice, which was good. But yes, I've got to book another appointment, and received a text at some point saying I was having computer issues. He was having issues. I was having computer issues. Sorry for calling 15 minutes later, but yeah, that should have worked to my advantage that he was calling later, but I was still unable to respond. So yeah, Mr. GP appointment, Mr. tutoring session. Monday is not going so well so far, but still, we've got many hours left in Monday, so I need to prepare for Wednesday's lesson, so I do not let my students down again. But for now, working. Excuse me. Working. What if I can speak without sounding like I'm being attacked by alien invaders? Now today is a Babylon 5 focus. The episode is called "Passing Through Gethsemane," with the legendary Brad Dourif. He plays, I think he plays Brother Edward, if I remember correctly. I've been watching the scene again and again, but there's so many different people a part of the congregation, and there are different focuses. But now, science, why is there so much of a glow all of a sudden? Sorry, it looks like I am being endorsed by aliens or being distracted by aliens. It's only 12:45 p.m, but it's so dull. It has been raining, and it is September, mid-September, late September, kind of. It's the 18th, I believe, 18th of September 2023. So I do not even know what the date is, and I stare at the date constantly to check for video details, and I'm always reading the date out on videos, and I still do not know what the date is. I'm so confused. So bear with me, please. There is still a glow, isn't there? Why is there still a glow? Looks like there's some spiritual endorsement of my video. Why is the glow in the wrong place? It will die down anyway, because I can see how miserable it is outside, so I'm not going to do anything with the curtains, so just bear with me. So science fiction and Christianity and religion and faith, they do not necessarily, and do not normally, I suppose, have a good relationship, and sometimes there is no relationship. Some people tend to find that science fiction is a sort of antithesis, a sort of go against for religion, faith, believing in a god or gods or whatever your idea or conviction, and I suppose this simply comes from science itself, the idea that science is not necessarily disproving religion and God and such, but I suppose it goes back to the idea that people have been and still are outgrowing God, that there is no need for God, because look at what we can do. Look at what we can do. Yeah, good things, but we also do bad things. Look at how we screw the planet up. So I'm not sure if there is really an argument for not believing God, not wanting to communicate with the God based upon what we can do, because you could just as easily argue that we cannot be trusted to run our own affairs. But yeah. Some people feel that, I suppose that they feel that there is no need for God, therefore one should not search for a God, or pray to a God, and obviously that's therefore only refers to this life, because obviously if you believe in an afterlife and people who are dismissing God, and all sorts of spirituality, and magic and mediums, I'm sure they have no belief in an afterlife. Sometimes it seems as though they actually do. Going by, I think going by some YouTube comments, I remember some people do interestingly have that desire still, or hope, which is understandable, while saying that they reject all gods that are known. But yeah, so there was a sort of far into the future episode of Babylon 5 where I think there was this man reading from maybe the Bible, and this was far into the future, even by Babylon 5 standards. But going back a bit to sort of present day Babylon 5, the year, what was it? It's year 2100 and something, I think, usually 2172 or something. So still into the future as far as we are concerned. We're only in 2023. Interestingly, you have people still believing in God, which is unsurprising. But and that sort of goes against the idea that God will be outgrown by anyone, because as long as there are still questions that need answering, and as long as people feel that they are being spoken to by God, whether or not they actually are being spoken to by God, obviously if they feel that they are, then there will always be that curiosity, which will lead to a religion of some sort, or an individual focus on one's faith. But this particular episode, passing through Gethsemane, it's really interesting. It's really good. I have no idea why people are not focusing on it, but basically Delenn is an alien, okay, so she's not human, and her species, the Minbari, they do not really believe in any gods. They do believe in reincarnation of the soul, but they believe and this is quite a popular theory, that we all are essentially an extension of the universe. The universe is one living entity, which in a way is completely true, I suppose, depending on how you define. But we all were created by the universe in a bid for it to understand itself. It's always reaching out, transforming, evolving, and adapting. But anyway, she's sitting down with Brad Dourif's character, one of the brothers aboard the space station, and she says to him, tell me what stands out for you, not the dogma, the scripture, what stands out personally. And he talks about, he says, the night of our Lord, he knew it would be his final night, and he asked briefly for the cup to be passed, and of course it would not be passed. And but the Lord, as in meaning Jesus, stayed where he knew he'd be found, and obviously we know what happens next. But the focus is on how, and Brad, he's such a brilliant actor. He says he wonders whether or not he would have that courage. And of course later on, towards the end of the episode, he finds he does have the courage. So let's go to the episode and see what is going on. My stomach may be rumbling. I've not eaten yet. So please excuse my stomach. For some reason the clip has gone. Oh no, here it is. I've got it in me to make it. Okay, so it'll start in a moment. So there's the scene. She specifically says defining moment. I forgot to add that, the defining moment. And I think the focus is very interesting, because it's very you can see Delenn being moved, while clearly she may have heard of this Lord, this human centric, not human centric, but see among their species they have no concept of Christianity or Hinduism or Sikhism, none of that. So she may have heard of the Lord, but this is a new idea, a new something she cannot latch on to, does not fit with her beliefs, and yet she's still moved. She can understand the sincerity, and as she says, among her people, anybody who's seeking the truth should be sponsored. So there's immediately that understanding that we may believe in different things, but actually ultimately we all believe in the truth, and the truth is a concept. Therefore you are always open-minded. You're always, you may be in different cars, but you're going in the same direction, or trying to go in the same direction. So they're not they certainly are not competing with one another. They both are truth seekers. So already there's that that sort of comfort, so similarity there, a bond perhaps. But Brad's delivery of the line is just so perfect. You can hear a sort of containment of emotion, but still it's contained, but it's clear. It's very clear what he is saying and expressing overall. And so the acting is great as usual on Babylon 5. The script writing is great. But it's very interesting, and so you may not expect a scene like that in a science fiction show, although Babylon 5, like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, do have quite clear concentrated focuses on religion. Whereas shows like Star Trek The Next Generation, it was more, there may be one or two episodes which deal with gods or a god or a religion, but mostly it was about more about the politics of Starfleet, I guess, and the politics of the Klingon Empire and such. But when Babylon 5 and Star Trek Deep Space Nine came along, they were much more religious they were much more religion focused, while still about space exploration and wars and such. It's interesting. I have always had a strange relationship with very concentrated focuses of religion, where they tend to put me off. So when alone and able to express my own ideas, I feel it's much easier to try and understand. Not necessarily have answers, or not to necessarily even have clarity, but I have clarity of the search. So, and also it depends. Like my friend's church, they're very open-minded and much more. So it's always it's never a headache, even if you disagree with them, disagree with the service or something. It's much more sort of honest and open, rather than saying this is what happened, this is what you must believe, that's the end of it. It's more, or let's try and understand this, which is how all churches should be, I think, across all religions, if I may say so. That brings me to I was briefly looking up Gethsemane on Wikipedia. As you can imagine, there's debate about where the site actually was. There are 4 locations, all of them at or near the western foot of the Mount of Olives, officially claimed by different denominations to be the place where Jesus prayed on the night he was betrayed. The garden, that's the Catholic Church of All Nations, built over the Rock of the Agony. The location near the tomb of the Virgin Mary to the north. The Greek Orthodox location to the east. The Russian Orthodox next to the Church of Mary Magdalene. William McClure Thompson wrote a book, The Land and the Book, published in 1880, and he debated about 2 places being wrong. Some references to verses from the Bible, Mark 14:31 and Matthew 26:36, John 18:1. John states he went to a garden near the Kidron Valley. There's some scriptural basis there, and according to Wikipedia, and archaeology. This is an interesting focus. Oh, why am I glowing again? Why is the glowing back? Oh, the sun's coming out. Oh, wow. So, somebody might say this is a spiritual intervention, but I think it's just a bit of late September sun. But the glowing's going down already. But yeah, so Babylon 5 has brilliant acting, brilliant script writing, and this is a very interesting scene because although there is a long saga, you still have the episodic, episodes. You still have episodes that can be in in a cartoon sense where something happens and it's resolved before the end of the episode or at the episode's end. Even it does not carry over. Which is not true for all cartoons, of course. There was a late that came to be that sort of disappeared with the 1990s Batman cartoon and Superman and crossing over and villains remembering what's happened in the previous episodes. The cartoons became more clever and saga based and. But in a sort of Tom and Jerry sense, where within the same episode they heal from their wounds and things. So in that sense, it's nice that Babylon 5 had the huge saga while also having moments it would have been nice if characters referenced later on, but you also understand why they're not able to, because then that way they can have these big, this was a big episode. I recommend you watch it. I recommend you that you watch the whole show, but if this way they can have these big moments without huge ramifications, which may alter the trajectory of the whole saga or the saga full stop. So yeah, Brad's acting is really good, as you'd expect. The glow, okay, so it's not to do with God. It's every time I mention Brad's name, I think the sun suddenly comes out. Brad, is this? Can I dial? Can I increase the volume based upon how many times I say Brad's name? Look, now the sun's going out again. So Brad, hello, Brad's accent is brilliant. Some churches are more modern. No, church is not increasing the sun brightness. Okay, fine. Okay. There's a God in a grumpy mood today. Brad, church, no, hello, okay, fine. Suit yourself. Some churches are much more modern, not just employing the use of technology, but they may. I remember a church showing a clip from The Lord of the Rings, I think. So, because obviously that's heavy with, it has allusions to Christianity, but I was going to say fellowship and and I suppose that's quite prevalent throughout the Bible, or with Jesus and his disciples. So yeah, I'm definitely someone who can find religion very, very off-putting, self-defeating. So the whole point of having an expression is to help you reach the cause. An expression is an expression of the cause and an attempt to reach the cause. And if Christianity or whatever becomes bigger than the cause, then obviously that or leads people away. If people keep investing into the expression and not investing into the cause, that's very worrying. So, in my view, religions are only supposed to be a ladder. They're supposed to help you get to the truth. They're not supposed to become the truth. And so often they become so concentrated that they themselves don't know why they exist anymore. They just think we must continue to exist. And the same for other things like political parties. It's all just posturing, and nobody's actually trying to reach the cause. It's all just about trying to make themselves as popular as possible. But when they get elected, there's no point because they've sold all their principles away. Instead of making the unpopular popular, they've just tried to copy what is popular, and then there's no point in you existing. There's no point in voting or anything. But back to religion for a moment. So I definitely have been quite often put off, especially when people tell me what to believe, or they're very firm. They say, "Look, I know this happened," and yeah, it's so. I think that's part of the beauty of it. You're watching a science fiction show, and then you suddenly get an episode like this where it's making you think, "Oh, that's interesting," because it's not even necessarily Christian, or is it anti-Christian? It's, as I say, it's just so gently saying, just posing questions. Would you have the courage to stay? The sun's really coming out now. You can see. I think I'm saying something which has been approved. Can you see me? Just about. Okay, you can dial the sunlights back a bit, back bits, please? Can you a bit more, please? Please, a little more. Okay, we'll try and carry on. My cheeks are glow. I've never had such glowing cheeks. This is amazing. My skin has never looked so good. That's because it's so bright you can't see my skin and how awful it is. I should take a photo right now and claim that this is how my skin actually looks. But yeah, thank you for your vote of confidence in me. But yeah, back to going away from the sunlight for a moment and whatever is increasing the sunlight. It is a very beautiful moment, because as I say, and again, not to say Christianity cannot ever have a purpose, but Christianity isn't Christianity, if you see what I mean, because it's supposed to just be a part of what, I mean, in a way it is, because I know it's partly intentionally trying to, have people congregate to find the truth, but the point is, you don't want to end up driving into Christianity and getting stuck there. You're trying to drive to the truth, so you have to make sure religion is not getting in the way of the truth. What was I going to say just a moment ago? I'm not sure. I am not sure now. But religion can become so heavy that you lose your way. And I've definitely been put off by religion. And oh yes, I was talking about Christianity in particular. It applies to other religions, I'm sure, but I've had more exposure to Christianity, I guess. Christianity shouldn't be Christianity, as in, it's actually believing in God or believing in Jesus or believing in the word of the Bible, etc. Rather than believing in Christianity, you have to make sure you know what you're actually believing in. And it's a very easy mistake to make, very easy. So for me, I do not normally, I almost always I do not see myself as being religious. Lately I had a sort of revelation that's maybe I just have in a way I thought about this decades ago even, but I suppose it resurfaced and very strongly. That's maybe I just have my own religion in a way. You may say, oh, if it's just you, therefore it cannot be a religion, it's faith. But no, I mean something slightly different, because faith is something else. Everybody has their own faith. But no, in a way I suppose I am religious, but I'm careful not to subscribe to Christianity how some do, where they subscribe to it and think that is the end of it. I'm a part of the club, but you're not supposed to be a part of the club. The whole point was it's like a docking station or petrol station. You're stopping there, you're getting advice or you're getting fuel for your journey, but then you leave. You do not, and which is not to say you have to leave Christianity, of course. But, be careful with analogies. But my point being, it's there to help you. It can stay with you along the journey. So the petrol is within you. The Christianity can be within you, but it's not supposed to replace the actual thing you are there to get help for. Because in our world, again and again, people make their expressions louder than the causes they claim to believe in, and that is so dangerous and so wrong. Sometimes I just wake up and think, there are certain people that I think believe in Christianity but do not actually believe in God, or have no idea, because it has been so long since they've actually thought about that. It's all about the almost politics, or it's all about the running of the machine. But the machine was only set up to help you reach the end goal. Is anyone actually helping you to reach the end goal? That is what you have to ask yourself. Are you actually being helped to reach the truth? So obviously religions, we know they can do awful things, but they can also do a lot of good. But back to my main point. I do not normally see myself as being religious, apart from, as I was saying earlier, in some ways maybe. Often it is easier to think about these difficult questions, like is there a God, and what's really happened in the days of the Bible. Do aliens exist? Because some people argue that the Bible mentions aliens, the offspring of the Nephilim. But so the people have different questions, and sometimes religion makes it harder to answer them rather than making them easier. So it is very difficult. It's very difficult, but people have their different paths. And as I say, it's so easy to do because when you think you've got to the truth or you've got a good system, you tend to think, right, I've got it. So I understand. Right, no Christianity, no Hinduism, Sikhism, whatever. I have this new idea. It's well, going away from all of that, blah blah blah, and it's going to be clear and oh look, you can follow me, and you wake up one day and think, oh my gosh, I've done precisely what the other people have done, and I've forsaken the cause. I've simply set up yet another religion. I'm not helping. I'm actually you'd end up hindering it. So it's very easy to do. You get carried away, and before you know it, you set up your own religion. It's so easy to do. Like right now, I can think, well, hang on, I think I have certain ideas religious leaders do not have. I can cut away. You're saying then they're not all necessarily bad. They're good things within existing religions, but let's really focus. It's going to be a direct path to the truth, but it's your version of the path to the truth. So once again, it's just another religion. It's really hard to actually get directly to the truth without creating a loud expression, which, i.e., a religion in this case, which can hinder. So yeah, it is really hard. Maybe it will always be a religious arm which we present. Maybe where spirituality is concerned, all we can do is create religions. I hope not. I think we can do better. I hope not. But I do not see why it would have to be. But there is this feeling that ultimately, as I was saying just a moment ago, we will just end up creating religion after religion after religion. And as I say, religion is not necessarily the cause of all of the problems where trying to reach the truth is concerned. But as I say, it's when it gets so concentrated and you're just investing in the religion, investing in your religion's version of talking to God and blah blah blah, and instead of actually getting to the truth, actually talking to God, and that's a difficult thing because has anyone ever spoken to God? How do you know? Because so many people claim to have spoken to God, or God has spoken to them. How do we know who is telling the truth, who is not innocently mistaken, and so forth? How do we process? How do we weigh up? And as I say, I mean, I remember a famous person died, and someone claimed that they had a dream that this person was in hell, and of course, at least one other person on YouTube says they had a dream and this person was in heaven or was going to go to heaven when revived. So if you take this is the point. If you take everybody's stories about obviously not wanting to call them liars, but if you put together everyone's stories, everyone's accounts, they simply do not go together. It's against logic. They do not go together. One person says this famous person was in heaven because Jesus told them so, and another person says this famous person is in heaven or is going to go to heaven because Jesus told them so. Where do you go with that? Who do you believe? How do you understand who? Did any of them actually hear from God or Jesus? I had a really powerful dream as a child, which basically was the end of the world. Not an exaggeration. This was the end of the world. There was a nuclear. I think there was a nuclear war. I was about 10 or 11, and somehow I survived. And I'm not sure if there were supposed to be other survivors, but everything was a barren wasteland in the most vivid detail you could imagine. And then the voice of God, whether or not actually God, but in the dream it was clearly God. It was not my voice, it was not the voice of someone I knew. The voice of God told me not to be afraid. And the funny thing is, being an English person, the voice of God said, "Do not be afraid, for the United States is still in play. We'll rise out of the sea like an eagle." And somehow the United States saved the world, what was left of it, which was pretty much nothing. So maybe took down these dictators who maybe still posed a threat or something. But and so that's by far my favourite and most impressive dream. There were one or two others later on which unfortunately I've forgotten, but this one has stayed in my head for decades. And it's an interesting dream to dwell on. And is there any truth in it? If so, what am I supposed to do? Well, I was already a pacifist, so what do you do there? Do you try and become an even more ardent pacifist than you already are? I've had quite a few different interpretations to that dream, and its symbology involving Pokemon, interestingly, and certain dictators, figures of the time in the real world. It is interesting. You can be tempted to say, well, the voice was so powerful, it must have been from God, but we have nightmares all the time which can make us shake and tremble, and we do not normally say that they are spiritual in any way. So how do you determine what is the voice of God and what is not? And that is so important, very, very important. But yeah, I like the lens gentleness, because as she says, she is a truth seeker, so she does not say, oh, this is Christian, we do not, obviously when she's explaining about her belief, she says we do not believe in any God or gods, but she does not say to him, well, an interesting idea, but you are wrong. If you notice, she never says you are wrong. She never says this is, your Christian God does not exist. She never once says that. She says, we believe in something else, but now tell me about yourself. She's trying to join the two halves together, because she recognises anybody is truly seeking the truth. So meaning that's the master level. They're not a Christian, which does not mean they're anti-Christian. It's neither here nor there. It means the whole purpose of them being Christian is to climb a ladder which they believe will help them reach the truth. That's the master level, the pursuit of truth. That's all that matters. They remain convicted, they remain honest about that, rather than getting lost within the religion or other circles maybe. She never says you are wrong. She says tell me about, because she wants to know, because she's a humble truth seeker herself. She's not arrogantly saying she has the answer. She's saying, you tell me about your life and I will tell you about mine, about my convictions, my beliefs. So they're sharing a story, and I wish that happened more in real life. I wish we could get, never mind, not just people, say Christians and Muslims sitting down and talking, which sometimes happens, of course. I knew a Muslim, and we would I used to live with him, and we'd have debates about God, very, very interesting debates. But Christians among Christians, getting people to sit down and talk, or Muslims among Muslims, and so forth. I think this is one of the things that puts me off about Richard Dawkins, because he can speak a lot of sense. Sometimes he cuts through the nonsense and says, you're contradicting yourself. Do you actually believe in your God? When there are clearly people in some of these interviews who don't actually believe. They're trying to sell the ideas themselves. They actually have no conviction, and Richard is rightly calling them out. They're fraudsters, essentially. They are not truth seekers. They just want the label of Christianity or whatever. But sometimes Richard Dawkins really goes off track, and I'm sorry to say, it feels like he's been quite arrogant. He's sometimes he's far more gentle than some people make out, but other times I think he definitely is guilty of an arrogance. And arrogance can creep up on us all. I think it is so important to sit down and talk, and have these important debates, and respect what people are saying. That does not mean you believe what the other person is saying necessarily. That is something entirely different, but that you have a respect for the person, at least, but by all means fiercely debate. I think it is a really interesting episode because, as I say, it's not the episode itself is all about that master level, about trying to approach the truth, because it is not saying do not believe in Christianity, believe in Christianity, believe in Valen, do not believe in Valen. It is not really stating anything, it is just getting people together. So if you have been watching Babylon 5, you know by this point that they believe in somebody called Valen, who is almost like a god to them. This is the Minbari I'm talking about, of course, in case you thought you missed a chapter on Christianity, an alternate universe. And obviously Brother Edward, he's talking about Jesus. So yeah, it is not stating believe in this, do not believe in that. It's simply reminding us of existing beliefs, of Valen and Jesus, and saying, not necessarily saying that the two can go together, but pointing or making space for you to believe that. It is just asking you to gently tugging on your sleeve, asking you to consider whether or not you are being honest with all of your convictions and beliefs, and stirring up that question about whether or not beliefs can go together. It stirs it up through Brad's character's question about whether or not he would have the courage to stay, knowing that the end was nigh. So yeah, I think it is a really good episode. The camera work is done very well. As usual, nice close up of the Len. You can see Lanier in the background, and close up of Brad, fairly close, and you can sort of see tears forming within the Len's eyes as she listens to Brad's character, and it is a very touching episode, and I enjoy it very much because it's honest, because some people, when they write science fiction, they think that there will be no religion, and at some points maybe there will be no religion, but clearly for the foreseeable future there will be. So it is a nonsense whether or not you believe in religion, and as I've been pointing out, there are so many problems with religion, but that does not change truth. We are not allowed to change truth based upon how we feel about something, in that, talking about something that's a fact and cannot really be changed or anytime soon. As in, we cannot, if we do not want religion, that is something different. We cannot say religion will not exist in the future because you personally do not want religion. You may help religion disappear because of your beliefs or lack of beliefs, but for the foreseeable future there will be religion. So it's just honest and accurate to say, again, whether or not you believe in them, whether or not you believe in religion or believe there should be religion in the future, it will be there. And yeah, sometimes I think when I was watching Southern episodes, definitely the brothers were perhaps the least interesting part, I suppose. But when you keep watching the episodes again and again, and you gain an appreciation, it really is interesting watching them. So anyway, I'm going to finish here for today.
On the night before our Lord was crucified, he spent the night alone in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he knew that they were going to come for him, and in a moment of weakness, he asked if this cup could pass from him, if he could be spared the pain and death that would come with the morning. And of course, the cup would not pass, and the soldiers would come to Gethsemane. But he did not have to be there when they arrived. He could have chosen to leave, to postpone the inevitable for a few hours or even days. He knew what would happen, but he chose to stay, to sacrifice himself, and thus atone for the sins of others. It's a very fragile human moment. And I've often thought about that night. And I honestly don't know if I would have had the courage to have stayed.